Hello, I am busy today with projects and finishing up some projects that I started a long time ago and noticed that my kombucha jar is empty. And usually I am on the ball enough that I refill my kombucha jar to ferment some more kombucha right away as soon as I bottle and add some fruit juice and cork those and get them in the fridge so that they're kind of like a soda. I refill it, and I didn't. So I've been, between other activities, making some kombucha. I'm going to go over it really quickly with you, what it is and how to make it, because it's so simple. But everybody and their dog has a video on kombucha. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that because there's so much information available online. But what I do want to talk about is how I use kombucha, because I don't just use it as a drink. So I'll start out with how we make kombucha, and then we'll go from there. So what I have here is a jar that I use for fermenting my kombucha, and you can see 2 scobies in there, actually probably 3. They fuse together after a little while, and so you can see that I have them in. That's what I ferment my kombucha in. I just put a towel with an elastic over top of that, and that allows me to make the amount of kombucha that my family would drink, typically in a week if the kids are here, and maybe in 2 weeks if they're not here. Now, there has been a point in time where I've made double that amount because my kids absolutely love kombucha, and that is because after the primary fermentation, where we add tea, so this is 8 tea bags to about 2/3 of this pot of water, which is what is going to fit in 2 of these jars, and 1 cup of sugar. So you can see this is steaming right now. It's too hot for me to add. But once it cools down, I'm going to take those tea bags out and I'm going to put that in here. And you can see there's a bit of liquid at the bottom still there, which is important. You need about a cup of liquid to start a batch of kombucha, plus your scobies. And SCOBY stands for a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. It's a mouthful. So SCOBY's easier. And they also call it the mother or the mushroom. And so that's what floats on top. It is not a mushroom per se. However, it is a floating gelatinous blob that makes kombucha. So when this cools down, I'll add that in there with that liquid, with the SCOBY, and I'll top it with a towel and an elastic. And I'm going to let it sit maybe for a week. It depends on the ambient temperature. The colder it is, the slower the kombucha ferments. And what's going to happen over that period of time is the yeast and bacteria in the SCOBY is going to eat the sugars that I added into this, and it's going to produce a very beneficial bacterial drink, or liquid, I should say. So once it comes out of there, I bottle it into bottles just like this with some fruit juice, and then I cork it. I let it sit for a little while on the counter, and what's going to happen then is it's going to continue to ferment. However, it's going to trap the carbon dioxide, which is one of the byproducts of the fermentation, in this bottle, and it actually produces a soda-like beverage when combined with juice. My favorite is cherry. Lots of people will add herbs. I prefer adding fruit juice. Now, every now and then I forget about the kombucha in the jar because I'm busy being a farmer, being a homesteader. And so what happens is it goes very sour. In fact, it turns into vinegar. And that's what I have in here. This is some kombucha that went too far. But you know what? It's still perfectly useful. What I did is I added some herbs, and you can kind of see them floating at the top because they are now surrounded in a SCOBY. I added coriander and bay leaves into this jar of kombucha, and I've been letting it sit on the stove, on the back of the stove, so that it's quite warm. So it is really quickly fermenting, and it's turning into a flavored vinegar. So I have some of that flavored vinegar, my last batch right here, and it is so good. So what I do for my salads, I have some sprouted greens here is I add a bit of oil and some of that vinegar and salt and pepper, and it is absolutely amazing as a vinaigrette. What else can we do with kombucha? So we do drink the beverage as a soda. We use it as vinegar. However, we can also use this SCOBY. So that SCOBY is kind of chewy, very rubbery, and what I'm going to be doing soon is turning that into some gummy bears. Weird, I know, but when you coat that with honey, and I'm going to add a bit of ginger to it also, it becomes an absolutely delicious gummy bear. And so I will coat it with ginger and honey. I will cut it into little cubes, and I'm going to put that into the dehydrator for a little while. And my kids will pop those like candy, as will I. And it retains that beneficial bacteria that has made kombucha such a healthy drink. So that is not only how you make kombucha, that's why I make kombucha. And I will be putting up a tutorial for the SCOBY gummy bears because that one's a little bit different. There's a few tutorials available online, but I'll give you my recipe and what I do with that. So I hope that was even remotely enlightening and that you enjoyed. And we will see you guys again soon. Take care.